Your question.
I'm also new to the human design.
Okay.
English is not my mother tongue, so
Okay.
be kind to me. I have many defined centers, and I was wondering what the influences in relationships, because I sometimes read when everything is defined, when you combine both charts of people that could be potential partners, that it could get boring. But if you already have 7 centers like I have, it's very easy that all the centers will be defined when you combine them.
Yeah. Okay. So this is another one of those kind of negative traditional human design things.
Okay.
9 and 0, nowhere to go, right? That's what you, right? That's what you learned, right? Yeah. So those little phrases, I have not found them to actually bear out to be true. One of the things, Karen, my mentor, says is, she goes, don't date by design, don't create relationships by design, don't think, oh, this person has that and I have this, and so therefore our relationship can't work. Like, don't do that. Do that. Because and she says, like, I didn't get to work with Ra. Wasn't in human design, when Ra was still alive. But what she says is, he would always say, don't use the chart as that kind of a guide to, like, don't hire somebody for your business based on their design. Like, what you can do is use design to look at the places where you could potentially have some challenges in your relationship because of how your designs interact, but not to say, oh, my relationship is doomed, or I can't get in relationship with this person because of how the charts interact. Okay. So let me just say that. But then let me make a couple of comments. Okay. So one is, when you have more definition, remember, definition gives you, it gives you ongoing, ready, reliable, consistent access to those energies, and an even kind of fixed way of experiencing them. That's what definition does. It kind of fixes your experience of them. And you can change that. Okay. Traditional human design doesn't always say that, but you can change that. I totally believe that. In quantum human design, that's a keystone of what we believe. And so, you can change it, but it does tend to mean that people who have a lot of definition are, this always sounds so negative. I don't want it to sound negative, but they're pretty consistent in how they experience their life. They don't have as much variability. Okay. A negative way to say that would be being set in your ways. Okay. That could be one way to say it. But again, that sounds negative. I don't want it to sound negative. It's more that you have a consistent way of experiencing yourself and experiencing life, and that it also can be a little harder to change, because changing the way you experience your definition can be, it just takes more work. It takes more focus. It takes more practice. And it takes more understanding that that's what you're doing. So that's one of the places. Like, I have a friend who actually has all of her centers defined. All 9 are defined. And I remember, when I did my reading for her, she just said, yeah, change is really hard for me. It takes time for me to change. So this is an important thing for you to know about yourself. Does that sound accurate for you?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's a
Change
good,
is hard on me. Yeah.
change is hard, right? Because
I take more time to get used to new things.
yeah, right, exactly. So that's just going to be a characteristics of having a lot of definition. Plus, you're emotionally defined. Being emotionally defined means that you need time also. And so, you've got those themes going on in your chart that you need time. And so that's an important thing to know in relationship, when you can express to somebody else that I need time to change. It may be that you welcome change, right? But that you need time. Whereas somebody who's more open in their chart, and especially if they're not emotionally defined, won't necessarily feel that way so much. Like, change is easier for them. They might be more spontaneous. They might be more like, oh, let's just change it up and do it this way. And you might be like, oh gosh, I don't know, I need some time to think about that. Like, really, you know what I mean? So just the thing that knowing your charts can do in relationship is help you to understand how each other's energy works so that you don't take things so personally and you don't judge each other because you're different. So if you need more time, your partner needs to understand that and give you that time and not be pushing you to be like them if they work more rapidly than you do. Right? If they can change more rapidly than you do. So that's one thing that kind of jumps out about all of the definition. But there's other things too, like just in terms of relationship, you have a defined head and ajna. And having a defined head and ajna, most people have it open. 7 out of 8 people are going to have that open. And somebody who has that open would probably need space from you so that they can it's easier for them to think their own thoughts. Because when you're like, for me, I have an open head and ajna. I had a partner who had a defined head and ajna. During the period of time when we lived together, I found it really hard for me to think my own thoughts. I needed space away from him in order for me to be like, okay, like what are my thoughts? Because that constant barrage, and he was like, he's a very, a person who thinks a lot. Okay. Not everybody thinks like as much as he did. But that's another thing for you to just be aware of, or how your emotional solar plexus could be influencing somebody else if they have an open emotional solar plexus. So the main thing that I would say is that you want to use the chart as a way to look for where in relationship there can be particular differences and ways that you might be experiencing things differently, and be able to embrace that as just an energetic change between you, right? It's just different and it's not personal. And, like if you're emotionally defined and you have your emotional wave and you're not doing that in a way that is trying to impact somebody else emotionally, and you're just having your experience, but somebody else can pick that up and amplify it and be like, oh, wow, so much emotion. So then the two people have to learn how to navigate that difference, right? And you have to learn to be like, oh, you're there. I'm just making this up. Okay. I don't know this is about you, but just like make it right. You're feeling low on your wave and you're feeling a little introverted and you really need some time by yourself. And, the other person is like, come on, let's go play. Let's do this thing. And you're like, right. It's like, no, I don't have the energy for that right now. And the thing is if you understand that it's just an energetic difference, it doesn't have to be a personality conflict. And this is what I think human design really can help us embrace in terms of relationship. Is that helpful?
Yes, thank you.
Does that make sense? Okay, that
Yeah,
distinction.
absolutely.
Okay, great.